Support for Elwood City Limits is brought to you by Facebook,
Facebook.com/Elwood City Limits,
Twitter,
@ECL Podcast,
Tumblr,
ElwoodCityLimits.tumblr.com,
and Gmail.
ElwoodCityLimits@gmail.com.
And from listeners like you. Thank you.
And my free time.
Got to get that in there. Oh, it is. I feel like a steamed clam in here. Lucas, you and I both recording in very, very warm rooms due to the humidity of things these days.
You're not going to often find someone from where we are from complaining about the heat. This is one of those rare days. And people around here, they usually get mad when you complain about the heat because it's so rare. But it's hot.
Oh, it's hot. It's hot pods over here. And whether you're hot, whether you're cool, or whether you're downright chilly, I'm glad that you've joined us for Elwood City Limits, the episodic Arthur podcast. Recording in my sleeveless Kevin Owens shirt, my name is Will Young, and recording in no shirt, I'm to understand, is my co-host, Lucas Mancini.
That's right. When I podcast, I let it all out there, whether it be my emotions or my corporeal form. It's for the world to see, a.k.a. hear.
You're like Martin Sheen at the beginning of Apocalypse Now in the hotel room.
Yeah, just about. Just as sweaty, for sure.
All right, so we've got a brand new Arthur episode to talk to you about today, as we do. Thank you for joining us for your week. But before we get to that, now see, one of the perks of recording from our homes is that I can use the computer right in front of me. The place we used to record, I used to have to print off the emails and everything. Lucas, I think you're using your notes on the computer, yes?
It's true. I can't really type on the computer just because of my setup where I'm using a cutting board as a lap board. I really don't have a desk in my apartment, so I'm kind of sitting on my girlfriend's bed with a cutting board on my chest and the computer on my legs, which makes it all that much hotter. So I try not to type too much because it picks up on the mic, but I do have my notes in front of me.
Excellent. Well, I've got elwoodcitylimits@gmail.com in front of me, and we did get a new email this week. This one is from Mike.
Before you get to the first email, Will.
Yeah.
At the end of last week during the usual plugs, I mentioned this, but I also want to mention it at the top of this week just in case someone doesn't listen to the plugs.
Sure.
I don't know why you do that. There's some good stuff in there, but for all of you who skip the plugs at the end, I just want to ask you to go to the Coast's website. You can find the link on the Elwood City Limits Facebook page and nominate us as a best podcast for the city we both live in now, Halifax.
Yes, please. It's been shared on all of our social media channels, but the one that's easiest to get to is Facebook. I also want to thank Arthur Obscurity on Tumblr. They reblogged that for us, so hopefully it'll get a bit more traction. We would love to be nominated as one of the best podcasts of Halifax. I'm not moved there just yet, but I will be in a couple of weeks' time, and then we will officially be a Halifax podcast. So please, thecoast.ca and their Best of Awards nominate Elwood City Limits for Best Podcast. Thank you for reminding me of that, Lucas.
No problem. It's like they say at the Oscars, it's an honor to be nominated.
Yes, absolutely. I would, hey, you have to go for the gold, or else why are you there? But I'm not going to be unhappy if we don't make it. We would be really happy if you nominated us, if you feel that we deserve it. All right, let's get to our email. It's called Elwood City's Location, The Plot Thickens. And this one really goes places.
Starting it off with a banger. I am so excited already.
Hello, Will and Lucas. My name is Michael, and I live in Colorado, USA. I very much enjoyed the podcast through the first season and look forward to coming seasons. Thank you, Michael. Recently, I attended a conference in Massachusetts, and throughout my visit, I was excitedly searching the area for similarities to Elwood City. I noticed that certain areas, specifically Braintree, have been mentioned in the Word From Us Kids segments, which further solidifies the idea that they film Arthur at least partially in and around Boston. Well, I think that was cemented for us, Lucas, when we had, I forget what episode it is, but the kid with the real thick, the Boston accent.
Yeah. Look at this guy over here. What's up with this guy? Huh? What's this guy's deal, huh?
Sounded like little Karibo doing Joey's voice on Yu-Gi-Oh! Abridged.
Oh my goodness gracious.
However, Elwood City seems quite a bit smaller than Boston itself. My conference took place in the town of Lowell, which very much seemed like Elwood City, in my opinion. There were a lot of old brick buildings, including the school, like Lakewood Elementary, and the Sugar Bowl would fit very well in the downtown area on Merrimack Street. I was unfortunately unable to get pictures of this downtown area, but I'm sure a quick Google search can get you there. I also noticed that at the Museum of Science in downtown Boston, the presenters always had the same catchphrase, "Prove it." This is, of course, the title of Episode 4 in Season 4 of Arthur.
Oh, man. We're getting into some YouTube video territory here where it's like the ancient Babylonians, and if you look at the numbers, divide that by 2, and look what it says.
I was wondering why...
666. Like, it starts to sound like one of those YouTube conspiracies.
I was wondering why he ended the email with ... aliens. No, not quite. I'm assuming the phrase is only used at this museum, as I've never heard anyone use it outside of Arthur, and now the Boston Museum of Science, which also looked very similar to the episode itself. Michael attached a few pictures from their trip. One of these is of South Lowell, which I took from the Metro because I thought it looked similar to semi-aerial views of Elwood City. He even cites specific episodes. Very good, Michael. The two others are of enthusiastic lobster souvenirs, reminiscent of lobster in the Old North Church gift shop. Thanks, and keep up the great podcasting. Well, thank you, Michael. I appreciate your photos, and we're going to share their photos over on our social media coming up this week.
Something to mention about the old brick buildings in both Elwood City and Massachusetts isn't, now, this is me really talking out of hand because I'm no expert in American history, but isn't Boston one of the oldest cities in all of America? And I think the other place that we suspected Elwood City limits was Philadelphia, is also a really, really, really old city. So those both have more evidence now for being Elwood City. I'll also say that aren't me and you a bit of experts when it comes to lobster souvenirs? That's something that's really popular around here.
Oh, you better believe it. We have got lobster souvenirs out the wazoo.
If someone wants to learn a little bit more about where me and Will are from, there's a great YouTube video that's just a supercut of every time Nova Scotia is mentioned in any sort of movie, and not unsurprisingly, it's pretty short. But there's like the part from Ghostbusters where he's like, "Oh, and real Nova Scotia lobster." There's a part from The Simpsons where they're talking about Nova Scotia lobster. So that's pretty much what we're known for around here. Maybe Elwood City's not in these states at all. No, they go to the president. Never mind. I got excited for nothing.
Yeah, no, there wasn't some kind of cartoon representation of Jean Chrétien during Arthur's time, unfortunately. Although that would be awesome. Okay, thank you again, Michael, for the email, elwoodcitylimits@gmail.com. We start off this week's episode with Arthur's TV Free Week. Now, it doesn't exactly go where you think it might to begin with. Arthur's talking about what you would bring with you on a desert island, which is a great question, one of those classic icebreaker questions. And we get the full list from everybody. Before we get into them, Lucas, what would you bring on a desert island?
Well, first and foremost, a really solid fiber op internet connection.
Yup.
The WWE Network, the American version of the WWE Network, and maybe a Nintendo Switch.
Oh, very modern, very modern. Have you picked up a Nintendo Switch yet?
That is why I want my damage deposit so bad, so I could instead of being responsible with it, I could get a Nintendo Switch. My girlfriend's a big fan of Splatoon, so we want to get one in time for Splatoon 2.
Is your girlfriend a kid or a squid now?
Well, one of the things that's so great about the world of Splatoon is that when you're a kid, you're always seconds away from also being a squid. So the wait's never too long to be a squid or a kid. Kid
squid is all of the power in the palm of your hands. That sounds like a commercial for the Switch. We're not paid. Hey, Nintendo, if you want to pay us, we gladly be paid in Nintendo Switches.
That's true. I'll take a free copy of Snipper Clips any day of the week.
Absolutely. I'll even take a Wii U at this point.
You should have asked me before I sold mine. Anyway.
Don't worry about it. I got a friend who doesn't want theirs anyway. I'll find my way around to it.
You don't say. Someone doesn't want their Wii U.
So we've got, or I guess I should say what I want on a desert island. I like yours. You started off really strong with the fiber optic internet. My PlayStation 4, which has the American WWE Network on it. Cough, cough. And my iPod, absolutely, so that I could listen to music and podcasts and whatnot. And then I think I'd be okay. It's kind of a standard man in his mid-20s answer, but I think that's probably... I mean, that's all I use when I come to my apartment anyway. It's basically like a desert island over here. But I think the Arthur characters have a much better idea. So Arthur would bring his books, Pal, of course, good choice, and a soccer ball. Then he supposes what some of his other friends would want to bring, like Buster.
If you only had a soccer ball on a desert island, you'd get pretty good practicing all day. He'd be like Messi or something.
But you wouldn't be good in like competitive scenarios. Like you would only be able to play against yourself. It's like doing a mirror matches all the time. It's like only fighting the AI in Street Fighter. Then you go against a real opponent and you can't account for, a real human player.
It's right. That's doing dive kicks over and over again in Mortal Kombat 2 is not going to work against a real life person, but against the AI, it's just fine.
Arthur, I feel kind of stereotypes Buster a little bit here because he says that Buster would want snacks, which is just piles and piles, cartoon style, of food, and a comedian to make him laugh. And
Jokes on Arthur, because Buster probably has the most besides maybe Mr. Ratburn, Buster has the most survivable equipment because nobody else, including ourselves, remembered to ask for food or even a way off the island.
Well, don't forget about Muffy. He kind of makes a joke that she just want the bare necessities, but basically she has, like a livable cabin on there. It doesn't look like a cabin. It looks like a little house. It looks like her little clubhouse, and it's got like a diving board at the top, and she's got a servant there who serves her drinks. Like, she's probably doing just fine. And finally, Mr. Ratburn would want to bring Arthur's whole class, which, it's a funny joke, but then you take a look at the scene, it's Mr. Ratburn at the chalkboard, and then everybody else's desk is in the water, so everybody is just getting their butt wet, watching Mr. Ratburn do word problems. And that's not fun.
No, I wouldn't say so. I also don't think it's an environment that is conducive to learning, per se. If I was sitting waist deep in the water while someone was trying to teach me word problems, I don't think I'd be able to keep focus so well. Maybe it's a brand new age technique, though, water learning. I've heard of everything, hot yoga, goat yoga, but I've never heard of water learning before.
Well, and then you have to like pay attention to anything in wet jeans, and that's just, that is the worst, no matter what age you And then finally, Arthur supposes the one thing that everybody would want, the universal want of kids in the 90s, TV.
Now, we've touched on this before with Arthur. In past episodes, whenever they ask kids a question similar to what you would want on a desert island in A Word From Us Kids, like, for instance, the episode where it was, what would you take camping? Almost every single kid, without a doubt, said a portable television. This is something where Arthur's very of its time, where kids were really, really, really obsessed with TV in that day and age. And it's something that you don't really see the same fervor for these days. Like, especially speaking for myself, I know I could definitely go without TV. I'd be fine with just, like, wrestling and, I guess, Big Brother this season. Maybe Game of Thrones. But besides that, I don't really watch television. What about yourself?
No, almost not at all. And really, the TV is kind of a means to an end because I'm using like the PlayStation 4, I'm using Netflix, I'm using the WWE Network, and then that's kind of it. Like, I don't watch any TV programs. Like, when I go to my mother's house,
they're like, oh, we gotta watch Medium. I can't. Is Medium even still on? I don't know. That's like my go-to show that parents like. Oh, I gotta watch Ghost Whisperer.
If Medium is still on, I guarantee my mother is watching it. But every time I go to my mom's house, there's nothing on TV that I want to watch. It's like edited versions of movies that I own or don't want to watch, and so I end up watching the Much Music video flow. So just a bunch of music videos back to back.
Hey, you could do worse than that. Now, I have a question about the TV at your mom's house, okay? 2 questions.
Yep.
1, they have an HD TV, right? I actually have 3 questions. They have an HD TV, correct?
No.
No. Okay, never mind. That answers my other 2 questions, which is, when adults have an HD TV, 1, did they turn off the motion smoothing? And then 2, do they still just watch all the SD channels? Because they don't know that if you just add a number in front of the SG channels, it makes them HD. So you go over to someone's house and they're watching football games in a wrong aspect ratio, even though they have all the HD channels. But they're just like, oh, channel 12. It's always been channel 12. Listen, buddy, channel 612. You get it in HD.
No, she doesn't have HD. She still has like a big old black TV that she just will not get replaced no matter how much I tell her. Like, it's impossible to watch things from a distance on that TV. And for her as well. Her eyesight's worse than mine.
I'll tell you what, though, that TV would be great for GoldenEye on the N64.
Yeah, probably the only thing you could play GoldenEye on, or like Guitar Hero, which I have played that on.
That's true. You could actually have like a solid Parappa the Rappa score because there'd be no lag.
Right, exactly. So TV is the universal want, which, like you said, Lucas, kind of dates this episode a little bit, and we'll get into that as we go along here. So, of course, this whole episode is around the idea that at school they are doing a TV-free week with the students. Mr. Haney kind of awkwardly explains this in an assembly. It kind of comes down to that there's a lack of conversation among families, and the blame is kind of placed on TV, which is kind of interesting. And I imagine for our younger listeners or younger people who are watching this, it's really proof that this kind of thinking doesn't go away. It just adapts to a new generation. Like these days, over and over again, people our age and younger are, constantly waylaid with people being like, oh, they're always on their smartphones. They're always looking down at their smartphones wherever they're walking. They don't even talk to each other. And like, what do you think we're doing on our smartphones, dude? What do you think we're doing on our smartphones?
They're always playing with their fidget spinners, and they want to have a good old conversation.
I'm not playing with my fidget spinner, although it's right behind me. I could go get it if I wanted to.
Oh, jeez.
But it's proof that, like, I think there's an XKCD comic out there that it's like, going back into like the 1900s and before. It's just like, if it's not
the one with everyone on the bus where they're everybody on the bus with the newspaper, and then like it shows everybody on the bus with the cell phones. That might not be an XKCD comic, but I've seen that comparison made before where it's like, nobody ever talked to each other on the bus, and they're not going to start anytime soon.
It's pretty much that thing. It's like, if it wasn't smartphones, it was TV. If it wasn't TV, it was newspapers. If it wasn't newspapers, it was books. Like, it's always going to be something that people are critical that just like nobody talks to each other anymore. And just like, I got news for you. Nobody talked to begin with. But yeah, that's just kind of the thing that adults will latch on to. So Miss Tingley says that kids can sign up in their classrooms. And this brought up to me a big question. And in fact, I'll go into a bit of the next scene as well. So, Arthur, Buster, Francine sign up, and they get like a gold badge if they do TV free week. Then Arthur and Buster outside are talking to Binky, who asks them if they're going to watch a little Bionic Bunny tonight. And this is when it dawns on Buster. He finally realizes that he signed up for TV free week, so he can't. And it seems that he did so without fully realizing the consequences.
The whole conceit of the episode is sort of like a PG version of the contest episode of Seinfeld. As
Very
opposed
PG.
To as opposed to the rated X contest in that episode. But it's very similar, and the way the characters deal with it and how some characters crack earlier than others is very similar to the way that Seinfeld episode goes.
And Binky himself says, Arthur says, did you sign up for a Binky? And he said, no way. That kind of thing is for geeks. Which hey, I agree, Binky. It is for geeks. But
Binky's been listening to a lot of Brian Alvarez lately.
Buster is the geek of the week.
That's right. Buster's the geek of the week. That's hilarious.
Yeah, but the thing is, so my question is this mandatory or was this voluntary? Because
did your school never do this? Because my school actually did do this.
I think they may have, but I honestly don't remember. I know that after I saw this episode, I was kind of inspired to do it myself, although I don't know if I followed through.
No, I think we got like ribbons at my school. They weren't custom made. They were like obvious dollar store ribbons.
Okay.
But I also think it was like it definitely wasn't voluntary. Mandatory. I mean, you had to sign up, and then it was the honor system, and then you would get your ribbon at the end of the week. So I definitely think that this was like a real thing.
Right. So, I mean, I think a lot of the stakes are taken out of it when it's like voluntary, which apparently it is, because Binky didn't sign up for it unless he like pretended to sign the contract and then attacked Stone Cold and then he signed the contract. But I guess I'm guessing it was just voluntary, like it was at your school. So Arthur is facing a week without TV, as well as with his family as well. His family decides that they'll do it as well, Mom, Dad, and DW. And I liked at the dinner table they're talking about this, and just like Dad's like, it'll force us to be creative. You know, it'll kind of force us to spend time with each other in ways that isn't around the TV. And Arthur says, "What are we doing tonight?" And they just like, which I completely understand. Like, on one point, you want to congratulate your kids for doing this thing, but also you're just like, oh, I have to entertain them now, don't I? Uh-oh. And then DW steps up to entertain the family with her not-so-great card tricks.
I wonder if DW's going to get, like, way into improv when she's older. Like, she's going to be way into, like, yo, come to my improv show. It's going to be a great time. We'll play
totally
Zip Zap
see that.
Zop.
Yeah.
DW, what's that movie called? That Mike Birbiglia movie?
Don't
think twice.
Don't think twice.
Yeah.
Or I think
that's what it's called.
I just watched it like a month or two ago, and it's something along the lines of like don't think twice, or well, hey, I can just punch it into Google here. Sorry, I know this is riveting, but this is going to drive me nuts. It's don't think twice. Okay. Whew. Problem solved. Dad has to kind of take the bullet and be like, "Is this your card?" And he's like, "Yeah." And then Mom elbows him. He's just like, "Yeah, that's the one." And then DW and Arthur start fighting because she asks him to think of a number between 1 and 10. He picks 2.5. And then Mom gets so frustrated, and then she uses what I'm guessing is the shorthand for everybody shut up, which is to turn on the TV. She's just like, "Look, let's just do something relaxing that we all enjoy." And I'm like, yeah, you could probably catch some like Deep Space Nine or something.
Or Frasier reruns.
Ooh, yeah, that's when Frasier was. No, that's probably Frasier original run.
That's right. Everybody was like sitting around waiting for that new episode of Frasier.
Oh man, love me some.
What would have been the TV shows at the time? Like, let's see. This is what, 96?
97.
97? Everybody's crowding around to watch some WWE Raw.
Yeah, I don't know. That doesn't seem appropriate. It doesn't seem appropriate for a 4 and 7-year-old.
That's true.
I've got TV show 1997 into Google here. You've got the early years of King of the Hill, Buffy the Vampire Slayer. Recess started in 1997.
What? That's crazy. Recess is way older than I thought it was.
Absolutely. Maybe they're going to watch some Ninja Turtles: The Next Mutation.
Listen, there was some pretty good. No wonder kids were so obsessed with TV in 1997. There were some pretty good options.
Yeah, no, there's a lot of good ones here. No, I got it. They're going to be watching Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, the TV show.
Oh, jeez. We can't be added to the list of podcasts that have talked about Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, the TV show lately. I feel like the McElroy family of podcasts have been constantly bringing up Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, the TV show.
Man, must be on like a wavelength or something. Oh, no, okay, I got it. Last one. They're definitely watching the last season of Roseanne.
Oh, jeez. The hyper dark last season of Roseanne. That's crazy.
Yeah, absolutely. So who knows what they're going to be watching? They almost watch TV. This is where we find out that Arthur's mom's name is Jane. So it's Jane and Dave Reed. We kind of go from person to person here, just their experience first night without TV, like Francine and Oliver trying to listen to a sports game on radio, but they can't even figure out what sport it is. I thought that was kind of funny.
Yeah, Francine says I think it's basketball, maybe soccer, hockey, because all you can really make out through the static is someone saying a vaguely European name and someone scoring, which could be any of those three sports.
Absolutely. It reminds me of my dad trying to catch the AM signal on a clear night from New York so he could listen to Rangers games. We go to the Brain, who is using his telescope, accidentally spies on the Eel of Fortune show.
Yeah, there's two animal show parodies in this episode. The Eel of Fortune and what's the chicken one?
All My Chickens.
All My Chickens.
And finally, Mr. Ratburn is all revved up to watch. I loved this. And speaking of Sign of the Times here, he's got all 10 episodes of Master-Geese Theater's The Life and Times of Dewey Decimal. Now, he's not watching on no Netflix. He doesn't even have a DVD box set. He has a literal box of 10 VHS tapes.
Oh, man. Mr. Ratburn probably loves, like, Ken Burns documentaries. He can't wait to watch Baseball Part 14.
Well, and of course, a subtle plug for PBS because it's the Master-Geese Theater edition.
That's true. It's not even like a play on words joke animal version of the Master. It's not the Master-Geese Theater. It's just the Master-Geese Theater.
That's good.
That's right.
Ooh, I like
they left
that
on the cutting room floor.
Oh, those fools. Oh, I love it. No, not Master-Geese Theater, to their detriment. So everybody's kind of struggling a little bit. The next day at school, they're talking about how tough it was to go without TV. Like DW sang songs for an hour or something. Buster comes to the table. He's got a huge plate of food. So he's already compensating for TV by adding more food, which I'm definitely familiar with in my own life. And he seems to be staying cool. He's like, oh no, it went great. I didn't even miss TV. And then Binky comes up, and just like the good comic foil he is, Buster immediately crumbles. He just like, please tell me what happened on Bionic Bunny. I haven't slept all night. Please, please, please. And
one thing before that is Muffy's explaining how her experience was also like not great, and she says it's harder for me because I have 170 channels, which I thought was quaint because like everybody has like 800 channels now if they have cable at all.
Yeah, I think 170 channels come standard, and I don't even have a cable package at this point. And I just like Binky's response to Buster of like what happened on Bionic Bunny. Lots of stuff.
Buster goes, you hear that? Lots of stuff happened and we missed it.
Yeah, he's going crazy. Yeah, we get the All My Chickens thing here as Jane is grocery shopping, and she sees it on like that huge wall of TVs that you'd see in like a Walmart or something.
My parents used to leave me when we went to Costco and I was a little kid. I don't know if I've told this story in real life a bunch of times, but I'm not sure if I've told it on the podcast. How if we were in Costco, my parents would leave me to watch the TVs and then just go do their shopping. I might have told that in the episode where DW gets lost in the store, now that I think about it.
Good idea by them, but thankfully you never wandered off to any of those tantalizing sample tables.
Or, thankfully, I wasn't stolen.
Yeah, my God. The 90s were a different time, kids. Dad's having a little bit of a hang-up, too, because he's serving finger food in a night costume, and he wants to see the weather to make sure he doesn't rust. Again, another sign of the times, if this were today, he could just look it up online, but he has to actually go to the TV or, God forbid, listen to the radio to hear the weather report. Goodness. So, yeah, everybody's having trouble, and then they eventually just put the TV in a drawer and unplug it.
When Arthur's dad turns on the TV to check the weather, DW goes, my own father! She's really the one who's enforcing this rule. She seems to be the most excited about TV-free week, more than anybody else, which is kind of funny, because she seems to watch the most TV. Besides Arthur, she's always watching Mary Moo Cow or Crazy Bus the movie.
Another great scene with Buster here at the Sugar Bowl, where Buster is literally counting out the minutes and seconds left in TV free week. At this point, they have 4.5 days left, so they're almost at the halfway point. Personal favorite thing of mine here. It's a line that doesn't get used everywhere, but when it happens, it's good. Buster goes, 2 more milkshakes, please. Are you sure you don't want anything? I just take some both for myself.
Well, it's also funny because Arthur's like, the milkshakes are like a stand-in for alcohol, because Arthur's like, haven't you had enough? And Buster goes, you're going to take milkshakes away from me too? He's drowning out his sorrows in milkshakes.
He's just adding more food to block out the fact that he doesn't have TV. It's classic addict behavior. Buster is breaking down at this point. Arthur says just to call him whenever he feels weak. At one point, Arthur and DW are walking Pal in the street, and they get approached by people doing a streeter for a news report. They are asking people on the street how they're doing with TV Free Week. And I just got to wonder, what's the point of doing a report on TV Free Week during TV Free Week?
I guess it's because adults mostly watch the news, and they probably don't participate, unless they're really go-getters like Arthur's parents.
I guess, but like, wouldn't you like the kids to see that too?
It's true, but they can't just like stop all news on TV Free Week. They gotta put something on there.
No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying do the report on TV Free Week after it's done and ask the kids how tough it was when it's all said and done. You know what I'm saying? Like the Monday after. Arthur tries to get them to watch it on the news that night, because how many times you get to see yourself on TV? That's always kind of a little bit of a thrill, especially when you're a kid.
Will, have you ever been on TV?
Yes, I have. Okay, this is going back a long time. Back in the early 2000s, the theater chain that used to be Empire Theaters, it's now Cineplex here in Eastern Canada, they had a booth that you could, I don't know if you had to pay for it or not, but it was like you could record a 30-second movie review, and they would take the video that they would get from there and they would use it on CTV, on our local news affiliate. And I did a review for Clock Stoppers, the movie Clock Stoppers.
I did a review for the movie, the VeggieTales movie, Jonah and the Whale.
Oh, yeah.
And I remember I said I hated the ending, which is really funny looking back, because the reason it ends that way is because it's a biblical story. And so I was expecting, because I don't think I even realized VeggieTales was religious at the time.
Right.
So I was just like, I like seeing talking vegetables. And so when it ends with a town getting destroyed and everybody not looking back, I'm like, what? What kind of ending is this?
I remember I was so excited because one of the anchors called me a young Roger Ebert because I kept doing the the thumb and the finger on the chin thing.
Ah, I see.
So I thought that got me really jazzed. I might have been on TV. I don't know, once or twice after or before that. I don't remember. That's just the one that comes most readily to mind. And of course, you've been on TV. You've been on Just for Laughs, which I found that video last week.
Oh, no.
I liked it.
Just don't link it to the audience. If you're interested in finding it, it's very Googleable, but we're not going to post it for you.
No, I had to do a little bit of digging, so you're going to have to... No, don't worry. I wasn't going to post that without your permission, but for what it's worth, my girlfriend and I really enjoyed it. We thought you were quite funny.
I appreciate that.
And it was definitely you. It was not any other little kid out there. It was absolutely young Lucas Mancini. Anyway, Arthur goes out of the room, and then when he comes back in, they've unplugged the TV and they're putting it back, and they decide they're not going to watch it. As DW says, it would be hippo-criminal. I remember when I was a kid, I didn't know what word she was mangling there, so I'm like, what does hippo-criminal mean? Buster is still breaking down at this point. You know, there's a phone conversation between him and Arthur where the first episode of Bionic Bunny is on TV that night, and it's like Buster is jonesing for it. He's got to watch it. But Arthur says he knows it by heart. So, you know, he's got it memorized. He doesn't need to watch it. Just think of it in his head. And then the next day at school, Buster... much like in the movie Reign of Fire, is reenacting the first episode of Bionic Bunny for everybody at the cafeteria.
I forgot about that part in Reign of Fire.
That's arguably the best part of the movie.
Oh, are you sure? What about the part where, oh gosh, what's his face jumps into the dragon's mouth?
It's either Christian Bale or Matthew McConaughey.
It was Matthew McConaughey. He jumps in the dragon's mouth and then just gets gulped.
That movie wasn't that bad. It was just kind of boring.
It's just it's not a movie that get made today, I don't think. Like, it's just it's not based on anything. It's just like, oh, there's dragons in modern day England.
No, definitely not.
The PS2 game was really bad.
Oh, I bet. You got to play that Panzer Dragoon on the Xbox.
There you go.
On the original Xbox. This reminded me of myself as a kid because so I have a weird brain, as I've mentioned before. I've got many different, a cocktail of different diagnoses up here. But one of them is that I obsessively memorize things. I have OCD. And when I was a kid, this definitely manifested itself in the form of, like, I would memorize things that I'd seen 100 times before. So, like, I knew every Arthur episode off by heart, which, like, it still happens to this day. Like, I know the tone of voice that is going to be in the next line. I know what's going to happen. And I do that for all kinds of things. I do that for, like, the Peter Rabbit books I would read and the tapes I would listen to. So it just reminded me of, like, I was able to do that. I was able to, like, reenact stuff for people. And if we ever get ourselves into a Fallout future, and if we ever the bombs drop and civilization is over, I'm definitely going to be the one to keep alive movies, TV, and all that sort of stuff, just on my own.
You're gonna be the bard. You'll be telling people, go to town telling stories. See, I did that too, but only with Flash cartoons.
Nice.
So, like, I would recount. Here's a poll. I would recount Legendary Frog cartoons.
Legendary Frog
and Homestar Runner to people in the playground. So that's funny.
Legendary Frog, the Super Flash Bros.
Oh my gosh! Decline of video gaming.
Decline of video gaming. Probably anybody who didn't grow up with this is probably, listening to us like we're crazy, but I was
and also, if you go back and watch that stuff now, it is aged like milk. It is it is not so great. And I remember at the time thinking it was the best thing ever.
Oh, it was so funny, but it was totally funny for, like, a junior high, late elementary mindset. Like, I basically knew what the Matrix was. I basically knew what video games were. Like, I got it just enough, and it did it for me. And
it's true. How would I have known what the Matrix was without Flash cartoons? That's true. Like, that's where I got most of my Matrix information.
Oh man, what a time of my life. And that was, I didn't even really go on Newgrounds all that much or anything. I was really just subsisting on Legendary Frog. And anyway, I don't want to go down this flash hole, but my goodness, like, I bet we could talk for a long time about this kind of stuff. Okay, so everybody kind of applauds Buster for doing his performance. And Binky comes up and says, can he do Bionic Bunny versus Techno Turtle Part 5? To which Arthur gasps and says, the movie? So I guess there is a Bionic Bunny versus Techno Turtle series, and it ends in a movie, or it continues Part 5 in a movie.
Yeah, it's one of those things where this also dates this episode. Like, the idea of looking forward to a movie being aired on television is such an antiquated concept. Like, I guess I could see it. Like, I remember on CBC, the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation, for all you Americans out there, where they would do, like, a Friday night Disney movie or whatever. I think that was CBC. I would look forward to it as a kid. Or there's a lot of, like, reading the TV guide in this episode, which is also pretty crazy. A lot of these things are of their time.
My family subscribed to the TV guide at a wrestling event last year. I bought an old issue of TV Guide because
I was going to say some of those are worth money these days.
Because Sable was on the cover, so I took a spin through all the TV Guide listings. That was a lot of fun. But yeah, exactly. You might be thinking now. I'm not sure if CBC did air Disney movies. You might be right about that. But ABC had The Wonderful World of Disney for our American listeners.
Maybe it was that.
Okay, and that was exciting because that could be the only way, other than VHS, where you could watch a Disney movie that you've never seen before. or you'd have to wait to rent it at your local Blockbuster or affiliate. At this point, it's getting really difficult for Arthur and Buster, especially Buster, because at this point, Buster starts hallucinating. He's going around his house just chanting to himself, "I will not watch TV, I will not watch TV," and everything he sees is turning into a TV. Like the mirror, his bed, his clock radio, like he's breaking down.
It's like The Shining, where it's like all work and no play make Jack a dull boy, or more accurately, the Simpsons parody of The Shining, The Shinning, where Homer says, what is it? No beer and TV make Homer go crazy?
Yeah, don't mind if I do. For me, it's almost a little bit of almost like Videodrome, where everything's turning into a TV. I'm just expecting Buster to reach into his chest and pull out a gun or something.
Oh, you're saying Buster is the new Flesh?
Death to TV free week. Long live the new Buster. But Arthur and Buster, both of them, they're very tempted, but they're honest kids. They're not breaking down, and eventually, Arthur starts seeing things himself. Like his dad conveniently is making rabbits and turtles out of gelatin, and he sees Bionic Bunny and Techno Turtle in them. So he decides to go for a bike ride. Buster goes for a walk, and then they both kind of subconsciously end up at Binky's place, and that's where they kind of decide, like, it's like we both know why we're here, to see the movie, so they're gonna break down together, and they feel less alone about it. But then Arthur decides to pause. He says, "We're so close, let's not ruin it now." So he convinces Buster to instead go to the park and play some Frisbee. Like I said, they both want to do this very honestly. Like there's nothing really stopping them from not telling their parents that they're doing TV Free Week and just saying that they did.
Or even telling their parents and just saying, "Yeah, I don't want to do that."
Yeah, exactly. So finally, we end off on them getting their gold badges. Speaking of dating this episode, when's the last time you heard somebody use the phrase wicked?
Well, that's also a very Massachusetts area thing. You can, I know from my travels, you can buy many a sweater at a gas station that says "Wicked Pissa." So that might still be around in some regional areas.
Anyway, it just brought me back to when that was the word. It was just like, oh, this is wicked.
Wicked.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, that too. And Buster kind of cockily says, like, I could do it for another whole week. I really could. And then the ending shot of the episode is Buster at the TV watching Bionic Bunny, almost not blinking, and in his Bionic Bunny hat, and just like back to his old ways. There's no word from us kids this week, as far as I could find, so we move to our second story, which is Night Fright. Now, it starts off with Arthur, although it is not an Arthur episode. And I thought this cold open was kind of strange. I mean, it kind of fits in with the theme, but so it's a dark and stormy night. Arthur's trying to sleep. Pal is snoring on his bed, and his snores are very, very human. Like they don't really sound like what I'm to understand dog snoring sounds like.
Oh, I thought it was Arthur snoring at first.
No, it's definitely Pal.
Oh, okay.
Because Pal's snores are disturbing the monsters under Arthur's bed and in his closet, and so the monsters kind of have a back and forth with each other, just kind of yelling.
And they remind me of the goblins from the start of Labyrinth when they're like creeping around. Whatever that actress's name is, house?
Jennifer
Connelly.
Yeah.
There we go.
The voice of Spider-Man's suit in Spider-Man Homecoming.
Ooh, I'm glad to see Jennifer Connelly get work. That's someone where I'm always happy to see them.
Oh yeah, I don't think she's hurting or anything. I mean, there really isn't that much to say. It's just kind of, Arthur saying ever can't sleep because of the monsters under your bed and in your closet, and they just kind of snipe at each other and start throwing things, and I don't know. It's not really super related to the episode, so
I like the vocal performances from the monsters. I don't know. I always kind of get a kick out of stuff like this. I'm such a big Gremlins fan, as
Yes,
I've talked about many a time, and so this does have a little bit of a Gremlins vibe of these little creatures in an everyday setting, just making a nuisance of things. So I enjoyed it for that, but you're right. It doesn't add much to the context of the episode.
No, and I mean, they kind of argued like they're a married couple. It wasn't like anything really all that compelling. We start off the episode with, an Arthur meme alert that I've definitely seen before. Binky on the Hill of Burgers. The hills are alive with the smell of burgers, and I've definitely seen that one before.
The hills have burgers?
Oh, jeez. Yeah, well, the hills have actual eyes here because Binky picks up a burger to eat it, a cheeseburger, and it screams, and it's like, Mama, he's gonna bite me! And then all of a sudden, a giant cheeseburger with like horn-rimmed glasses comes over the horizon and protecting her child, like, put down my boy, you big bully. And then all of a sudden,
like this southern drawl.
Yeah, and all of a sudden it turns out that all of the cheeseburgers are alive, and Binky was going to eat a whole hill of like living cheeseburgers. It's when I was a kid, I think I remember this kind of like creeping me out.
No, this nightmare makes me want to go vegan almost as much as Okja did.
Oh right, you saw that. Then I remember you saying that. I'll have to keep that on the queue. Is it Okja? I thought maybe it was Okja.
Nope, Okja. But not for the faint of heart. If you're an animal lover, it's a tough watch. So be warned, but it is a very good movie. And it also will make you, for a split second, be like, oh, maybe I shouldn't eat animals anymore.
This did make me realize, there are some foods in cartoons that look super appetizing. I don't think burgers are one of them. I don't remember like cartoon burgers looking particularly appetizing. Not like a cartoon steak or like a Donkey Kong banana.
I like the burgers in SpongeBob, the Krabby Patties. They always look really good.
Yeah, okay, that's an exception. Krabby Patties have always looked good. I can't watch the episode where Squidward eats his first Krabby Patty without immediately going to McDonald's afterwards. So Binky is at this point running away from the giant cheeseburger, and he runs into some kind of city downtown, and it seems he's being chased by like all manner of condiment and food. Like we get some weird stuff in here. Like for like all of a sudden a ketchup and a giant ketchup and mustard bottle kind of dive in almost like airplanes, and they come in and they're like screaming at him. They're like, "Arrgh!" And then Binky's up against a wall and they splatter him with mustard and ketchup, and he keeps running. It was so strange. And then he gets surrounded by like a bunch of large French fries as the cheeseburger closes in. And even stranger, this all kind of makes sense in like a food thing. Like there's a shot of the giant cheeseburger closing in on Binky, and there's like a shot of a billboard with a pair of lips on it, and it's just like laughing, like ha 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 ha.
There's actually like a bunch of billboards if you look throughout the scene, and they all have teeth or like mouths on them.
Yeah, no, it's so strange. I also put down here the ketchup and mustard when they yell. It definitely sounds like one of these stock Arthur yells, just kind of pitched down a little bit.
So Binky's trying to escape these French fries, and he runs away from them, and he eventually runs off the world, which is flat, like it's the world as described by Kyrie Irving. And so he runs off the world, and this whole thing reminded me of Toe Jam and Earl on the Genesis.
Okay.
Just because, like, the giant French fries and stuff seem like they'd be Toe Jam and Earl enemies, a la the guy in the banana costume or the giant hamster in the hamster ball. And the way the world looks in Binky's Nightmare, this like flat world with the stalagmites coming out the bottom, it looks just like how the world looks in Toe Jam and Earl, because you can fall off and then you fall down a level.
I'll have to take your word for that. I've never played Toe Jam and Earl.
Also, the way Binky flaps his arms is very similar to if you get the wings out of one of the present boxes. You should play Toe Jam and Earl. It's a little dated, but it's super ahead of its time. It's one of the first console roguelikes.
Binky tries to flap his arms, and for a little bit he succeeds, but then it kind of stops flapping his arms and falls into space, presumably forever. And of course, this is a dream. Binky's parents come to wake him up, and like he wakes up screaming, essentially, and then his parents realize he didn't plug in his nightlight. And it's here we discover that Binky needs a nightlight in order to sleep through the night without nightmares.
I'll be honest with you. I slept with the lights on until I was like 14 or something. Like, I was always afraid of the dark as a kid. So this is something I can sympathize with. Never had a nightlight, though, I don't think. I just left them on. I just racked up my parents' power bill.
I had a couple of night lights. I had, when I was younger, I had like a Thomas the Tank Engine one. I had a Jemima Puddle Duck one. I definitely used a night light for, the my single digit years. I don't know if I was Binky's age and having one, but I honestly don't remember. So at school the next day, the kids are talking about the new Scare Your Pants Off video. And I guess we are now officially moving into Scare Your Pants Off is Goosebumps in both book and show terms. So, we're now kind of emulating the Goosebumps TV show, which was very popular in the mid to late 90s. And the name of the video is called The Lunchbox of Notre Dame, which they keep they never really describe what it's about. They just keep describing elements of the story, and we're kind of not supposed to know exactly what it's about.
I wonder if the Scare Your Pants Off show was also filmed in Canada for tax purposes.
Wouldn't put it past them. I must also say I really appreciate them using the Notre Dame pronunciation, a.k.a. the right way to pronounce that, because it just reminds me of watching I love James Rolfe's Cinemassacre and his horror movie series he used to do every October, Monster Madness, but he did a couple of movies that were based on the Hunchback of Notre Dame, except he's got that very thick regional accent, so it'd be like, it's like, then we see the movie, the Hunchback of Notre Dame, Notre Dame, and I'm like, ugh, just kind of would cringe every time you do it. So appreciations on the French pronunciation, everybody. That day, Mr. Ratburn kind of hears them talking about this and then starts talking about stuff that they're afraid of. So we get a couple of the kids' innermost fears, including, what do we got here? Muffy's afraid of the roller coaster at Wonderworld. Arthur's afraid of ventriloquist dummies, which I completely understand.
Yeah, it's totally rational.
Yeah. Buster's afraid of a spoon stuck in pudding, like in the lunchbox of Notre Dame, which everybody is freaked out by once he reveals what it's from. And then Binky obviously wants to hide the fact that he's afraid of the dark, and his cover-up is he's afraid he will get so strong that the school will collapse when he shuts the door. And there's a little, imagination sequence to illustrate that. Like, he slams the front door, and the school just completely collapses. Yeah, but of course is covering up the fact that he's afraid of the dark. Then we cut to the end of the school day, and it's begun to rain. Everybody in their rain gear and waiting for rides home. And this is where Binky kind of starts to menace Arthur a little bit. Not like overtly, but he's definitely teasing him and trying to make him seem like his family's not coming for him. Just like, maybe your parents forgot about you. And Arthur says they're coming from his Aunt Lucy's, which is pretty far. Binky's
speaking of fears, this is like one of those childhood things that I don't have to deal with anymore, that I'm so happy I don't. Like, waiting for your parents to pick you up and them being super late and everybody else has already gotten picked up is one of those awful childhood feelings that I could only return to through media like this. And I was like, oh man, waiting in the rain and your parents still aren't coming, that sucks.
I definitely waited a long time once or twice for my family to get me, because I would usually walk home with my sister, but she forgot to get me once, so she got all the way home, and I was waiting at school, and they had to come and pick me up, and my sister was in tears that she forgot about me, but I was totally fine because I got to play her Game Boy as reparations. So she was at the foot. She was at the foot of my bed, just crying, I'm so sorry, I forgot about you. And I'm just playing Donkey Kong, and I'm like, yeah, whatever. I got to play with her Game Boy. It's fine. So it all turned out okay. But of course, Binky ends up paying for it because his mom, his parents come to pick him up, and Binky's mom says that Arthur's family ran into car trouble, so Arthur is going to stay with them for the night and share Binky's room, and we get the ominous lightning flash, his secret will be revealed. That night, Arthur gets some of Binky's old pajamas, which hilariously don't fit him. They're sagging down to the floor. It's almost like a look, almost.
It's true. It's like Rick Owens, season 17, fall FW. It's that oversized look that's coming back in a big way.
I will say it's funny to think about the fact that Arthur's dad and Binky are the same voice actor. So I just imagine it may have been a bit of a challenge for Arthur's voice actor to pretend that the person he was interacting with was two different people.
Like, in what way? Because they don't have the lines read back to them. It's just Arthur just reads it in a vacuum, right?
Yeah, but if they're doing like a table read or something.
Oh, I wonder if they ever did that. I'm to believe that, like, usually kid shows like this, they probably don't do a lot of table reads. They just kind of, everybody comes into the studio when they can have their time booked. It would be interesting, though. I know, like, the SpongeBob cast does stuff where they like, read unaired episodes or something as a live performance. That'd be fun to see with Arthur.
So Binky is trying his best to hide the nightlight from Arthur. He says that it's his nightlight, and he kind of, like... It's him splayed over the bed and, like, reading a book off of the floor just to cover up the fact that it's his nightlight. And of course, it's a very obvious nightlight, I should say. All right, I don't know what that means, but it's one of those plug-in ones. It almost looks like a Glade plug-in, except the light is the face of a clown. It looks like Pickles the clown.
Almost exactly. Like, they just redrew Pickles. Maybe Pickles has some branded merch a la Mr. Haney.
Could be. So Binky sleeps with the light off so that Arthur doesn't have to know, but then that immediately leads to a nightmare, which starts off, again, pretty creepy. Like, it's Binky suddenly opening his eyes, his skin is, like, stark white, and it's these weird flashing effects as he gets sucked into his nightlight. It was actually a little scary, especially if you were a younger kid. And then the whole nightmare is Binky stuck in the nightlight as Arthur is showing Binky's entire class. It's like everybody ready to see Binky's widow nightlight, and they all laugh at him. We get a lot
of like evil Arthur in this episode, which is something I really appreciate about it.
We haven't even gotten to the best evil Arthur. That's coming up. So Binky again wakes up screaming, and his mom puts his nightlight back in, and that's where he's forced to admit to a very sleepy Arthur that he sleeps with a nightlight. The next day at school, Binky is terrified that Arthur will tell people, and we get the voiceover again of evil Arthur of like, Binky sleeps with a nightlight, and everybody laughing at him. It's great. But again, the best is yet to come. Binky actually beats Arthur to school and hides behind a bush.
I thought you were going to say Binky beats Arthur, and I was going to say I must have walked away for that part of the episode.
No, he beats Arthur to school, hides behind a shrub, and then accosts him and just like, you better not have told anybody. And Arthur genuinely doesn't know at first. And then Binky takes this to mean that Arthur is lording the information over him. So then he just becomes Arthur. Like, he basically plays himself. DJ Khaled plays himself into becoming Arthur's slave. Like, congratulations,
That's right.
Binky.
My favorite part of this whole sequence, he's doing everything for him, basically, just being his slave. But there's a part where he's carrying him to the lunch table at recess, and it's some hilarious imagery. It's probably my favorite screen grab from the episode, because it's just so bizarre. Like, he's picking him up, not like a fireman's carry or anything like you'd actually carry a person, but it's like his arms are a chair for Arthur.
Right, and he's holding a cafeteria tray under him.
Yeah.
So I thought that was great too. I'm glad you noticed it. You know, Binky is just sure that Arthur will tell everybody, so he's going to be as nice as possible. Even though Arthur eventually catches on and says he won't tell anybody. Binky is incredibly distrustful. That day in class, they revisit the talk about everybody's fears with how they counteract their fears. Binky is again afraid that Arthur will just spill the beans in front of everybody, despite him saying he wouldn't. And this is my favorite evil Arthur. It's like, we go into Binky's imagination, and he turns to Arthur, and Arthur just goes,
Binky has a night light. 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 Binky has a night light.
Oh, that's the funniest thing I ever heard!
Binky has a night light. Binky has a night light. And then everybody joins in on that, and even Mr. Ratburn is doing a big stage laugh.
That's right. Mr. Ratburn's cackle really adds to this. This whole thing is incredible.
Yeah.
But Arthur's cadence with Binky has a nightlight, it's so snivelly and it's so out of character for him. It's what really sells it.
Oh, it's great. So some of the ways that some of the kids counteract their fears. So Sue Ellen is afraid of cemeteries. So whenever she passes through it, she whistles, and it works for her. When Brain's afraid, he shines a laser that goes through the moon, and it helps him. And it even shows like the laser hitting the moon, and the moon kind of smoking. So that's a powerful, powerful laser. And this one was definitely a little ballsy. It was Francine saying that when she gets nervous, she talks to her old stuffed lobster Bob, which to me is kind of on the same level as Nightlight. In fact, it's a little harder to defend, but Francine was all in with her stuffed lobster Bob. She even brought him to show everybody.
And maybe, just maybe, Francine bought that stuffed lobster from a Massachusetts gift shop.
Oh,
Who
bringing it
knows?
back to Michael's email. Excellent. I didn't even consider that. So Binky then realizes he's going to be stuck when Ratburn asks Arthur how he deals with his fears. It's like if he tells, then I'll be laughed at. If he doesn't tell, I'm his slave for the rest of my life. And for some reason. And then finally, Binky steps up and says that he sleeps through the night light. And as predicted, nobody laughs at him. Everybody kind of understands that that's a very common thing. And then
Mr.
Binky's just like,
Mr. Rappert says something really weird where he goes, "Excellent, Binky. That's very common and normal." And I'm here thinking, as opposed to what? Like, if a kid had said something a little bit strange, was Mr. Rappert going to be like, "Huh, that's really, really weird. You should go get professional help or something"?
Well, I think
just the phrasing "common" and "normal" was a little strange.
well, okay, so normal is definitely strange. Common is, well, like the brain. Nobody else shines a laser on the moon when they're nervous. That's
True.
not common. That's not common.
It's just a
and then-
weird thing for a teacher to say, because I feel like there's opportunities to make the other kids feel bad.
Definitely. Good point. And then finally, and Binky realizes that everything's okay, and then immediately reasserts to the top dog position. He meets Arthur after school, and essentially the end of the episode is him demanding payback for everything that he did for Arthur. So it's just like, I gave you this money to do this, fork it over, and that racing car eraser I gave you, like, give it back to me. And it's like now that Arthur doesn't have the power, and the actual end of the episode is Binky sleeping with his nightlight on, and we finally get to see one of his dreams, which is kind of just a nightmare, but Binky is in control because it's Binky terrorizing a downtown city. He's like giant and peering over the buildings, and he just says, "Move or you're mud." And Binky is sleeping peacefully. So that's the kind of sweet dreams he has. All right, so let's go back to the first story here. Now that we are at the end of the episode, what did you think of Arthur's TV Free Week?
I was a little disappointed with Arthur's TV Free Week. I was all for it, like the first 2/3, but I think that episode loses some steam near the end. There's some fun with the kids hallucinating and really starting to lose their minds over not having TV, but they kind of pledge to not watch TV, struggle with it a little bit, and then in the end they're tempted, but they don't watch TV, and that's kind of it. There isn't really some rising or falling action. Like, it's not a particularly funny episode, I found, and there isn't really a lesson to it. It's just like, oh, sometimes things are hard, but you should keep trying. So I was a little bit disappointed. It's not like unwatchable, and it's not bad. It's just a very, very middle of the road episode. Kind of forgettable.
I agree. I pretty much almost the same thing that you said. I think I said it earlier, and it's just that when I was wondering if it was mandatory or voluntary, when finding out that it was voluntary really kind of took the stakes out of it. Now, we're talking about stakes in an Arthur episode, and a light one at that. So, I'm not exactly saying that with the utmost seriousness, but at the same time, like, I didn't really feel compelled with this one. It was
I will say, I think something that could help this episode is, again, calling back to the Seinfeld episode. If some of the kids had failed and had cracked and watched TV, I know that's kind of supposed to be Binky's role in this, but I think it would have been fun if maybe Buster had cracked and he's trying to tempt Arthur with like, "Oh, I finally got to watch TV and it was so good." That could have added some more layers to the episode, but alas.
Yeah.
It is not so.
Yeah, it didn't really do much for me. It's, a couple parts of it were pretty funny, but it felt kind of disposable. Night Fright, I had, once I realized it was a Binky episode, and like I realized what episode it was, I was excited, but I don't know. It didn't work for me, and I'm having kind of trouble explaining why. It's like I didn't take very many notes on it, so I didn't really feel like it's tough. I think that it's definitely an issue that some kids have faced, especially in like Binky's, who may be able to relate to Binky a bit more, and it's funny. I don't know why I'm having so much trouble with my feelings on it. But I know at the end, like it wasn't terrific or anything. It was just kind of okay, and it felt like it really washed over me. Like it felt way shorter than I bet it actually was, and I'm not exactly sure what to chalk that up to. What did you think?
These are like a pair of really middle of the road episodes. I will say I had a lot more to like about Binky's Night Fright. One, it is a subject matter I can empathize with, and I understand why Binky would be embarrassed to have it revealed to use as a nightlight, especially if he didn't know it was a common thing. I also liked all of Binky's nightmares. As per usual, whenever Arthur gets surreal, that's always a plus in my book. My favorite thing about the episode, though, is that the conflict is pretty much all in Binky's head. Like, we as the audience know immediately that Arthur could care less if Binky's got a nightlight or not, so it was just fun to watch Binky squirm a little bit. Yeah. So looking back on it, I thought it was pretty fun, but again, these are two fairly skippable Arthur episodes.
Yeah. I will say that the nightmare sequences in Binky's episode were very imaginative and creepy and effective. Mm-hmm. And of course, evil Arthur is always very fun because it's so out of character, like you said. All right, that is another episode of Arthur in the books as we make our way through season 2. Let's rumble off the plugs here real quick. Facebook.com/Elwood City Limits. Give us a like over there.
And if you're there, click the link to the Coast to vote us for Best Halifax Podcast. Please and thank you.
In fact, as we speak, I'm going to put that as I'm going to pin that post to the top of our social medias. So if you So if you see that, make sure that you. I'm also gonna put up a hot Arthur meme once we end off here, the one of the day, and pin to top of page. There we go. Yeah, Elwood City Limits on Facebook. Find us there. Give us a like. Give us a review, and look at our link for the Coast. On Twitter, we are at ECL Podcast. Please follow us over there. On Tumblr, elwoodcitylimits.tumblr.com. Send us an ask if you like, or like and reblog. We always appreciate it. If you'd like to send us an email, just like Michael did today, you can send it elwoodcitylimits@gmail.com. And we would appreciate any kind of emails, especially if it's any constructive criticism, or if you'd just like to say something on the show, please let us know. And finally, the ways to listen to the podcast, of course, is the way you're listening to it, which is one of 3 ways. You are either listening through SoundCloud, Elwood City Limits on SoundCloud. You are listening on iTunes. You're subscribing, I hope, and hopefully leaving a rating and reviewing on your local iTunes store. Or you are listening on Google Play, which is brand new for the podcast. Elwood City Limits is on the Google Play Store for free, so find us over there. By the way, I just want to say to our contest winner, Ultra Esky, that I will be collecting all the things for your care package very soon, and I will be sending it before I move house at the end of the month. All right, so Lucas, we've got ourselves another episode coming up next week. Are you ready for the titles?
Oh, I was born ready. Hit me with them.
So it's Arthur versus the piano.
What? Wait a minute. What? Oh, man. This is continuity like we've never seen before.
And it's also going to be the big blow-up.
You wanted some stakes, well, they've never been higher.
That's true. They've never ever been higher. Not even when life was on the line. The big blow up. All right. Well, we hope you we hope that you join us for next episode of Elwood City Limits. Thank you so much for supporting us by listening, by interacting with us on social media, and by just being a friend. We really appreciate it. All right, Lucas, I'm gonna let you go here. You got anything?
My own father.
For Lucas Mancini, this is Will Young. We'll catch you next time for Elwood City Limits. Stay cool.